Oh, my name is Austin Belzer, and welcome back to the Austin B Media Podcast. In this episode, I'll be sitting down with Jack Martin of Film Feeder yet again to discuss something we talked about a few weeks ago, but a remake. This is Disney's latest live-action remake, Lilo and Stitch, which just came out in theaters. Memorial Day weekend? About a few weeks ago, as of recording. But Jack, welcome back to the podcast. Tell everyone watching or listening about your work at Film Feeder.
Well, it's a pleasure to be back. Yes, you just can't get rid of me. Yeah, we talked last time about the original Lilo and Stitch, which both of us had some fun memories, and a lot more discussions were had about how it's held up after all this time and all that stuff. So if you do want to go back and watch and listen to that episode, by all means, it's definitely there on all of Austin's channels. So, but this is, yeah, you're right. This is going to be a little. Think of it as a little live action remake of that episode, because I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of similar things, but in very different and very surprising ways. But yeah, what you were saying about what I do, yeah, I run Film Feeder, and it's a website that I've been running by myself for like over 10 years now, and it's basically I just write and publish just written reviews on new films that are coming out in the UK, either in cinema, streaming, and on demand. And every week I also do a what I call a movie menu, which is like a little roundup of all the new film releases. So if any American watchers or listeners were to visit that and see like, oh wait a minute, that film came out like a couple months ago, it's like the UK's really schedule is very different, I assure you. But that's what I do. I also make my own video content, short form reviews on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and every now and then I also run a podcast. So yeah, I haven't. It's a little bit dormant. I've stepped back a little bit, but it's still keep going. I'm just making new episodes whenever I can, and whether I have new things to get to talk about with interesting guests. But yes, that's pretty much what I do. And yeah, obviously, it's not a patch on what Austin does here. He's much more dedicated than I probably am. I mean, like just before recording this, I was like, "Wow, you've got a lot of podcast episodes on your plate. That's a lot to keep up with." So I'm very impressed by it, Austin.
Yeah, it's funny because here's a little behind the scenes for watchers and listeners to keep up the illusion that I was recording the episodes of Warfare, Lilo and Stitch, 2002, and Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning on different days. I think those were the last three I did. I purposely changed shirts so that people would think I recorded it like weeks apart or something like that.
Yeah, whereas this one, I'm pretty sure I wore the same shirt as I did in that other Lilo was. I mean, it's the most Hawaiian looking shirt that I own. So, if I did wear that shirt in that other one, so I apologize to anyone watching this. So we filmed this on different days. I want to assure you that, right?
Yeah. We recorded this well after our original podcast, but like Jack said, I do think going back and listening to that original podcast we did for Lilo and Stitch 2000 is probably a good thing to watch or listen to before this, because we're probably going to be referring back to what we thought about Lilo and Stitch 2002 quite, at least me, quite a fair bit. So I'd recommend going and listening to that if you haven't, just so you can get a touchstone. But with that, also, I didn't know you were running Film Feeder for 10 years. For some reason, I thought it was much more recent.
No. Well, I mean, so Film Feeder. I mean, honestly, it goes further than even that. So, I mean, just a brief history lesson. It really kind of started when I was in school, about 9 years old. I used to to write out like little movie newsletters about like all the latest movies that were coming out, like all the ones I was like a 9 or 10 year old was excited about. You know, just distributing that to everyone in the class, and most of them would just throw straight away, but it really kind of gave me a sense of purpose, and that continued for a little while. Or when I went through like high school, secondary school, and even a little bit into my undergrad at uni. And then into 2013, I just thought, you know what, I might as well just make this into a site, and it's honestly been going ever since. It only recently had a major upgrade in terms of the design. Like the logo was different, the overall design was changed up, and no, I'm honestly glad it did, because the way it looked originally was pretty outdated, to say the least. So yeah, what you're looking at is all new Film Vita, but the actual website has been around. It's been around for a while. It's a teenager now, which is very scary.
It can now go into Marvel movies without the parental guidance.
Yes, yeah. Although for us, because we have the 12A certificate over here, you can be like over the age of 12, you could just go straight into it. Whereas I think it's a bit different with PG-13.
Yeah, you can hear Elena talk about her mental issues now that film theater's what, 10, 12?
Um, I don't know. I mean, the actual website is 2013, so yeah, I think it's coming up for 12 years now. 12 years 12 years a reviewer, to reference a very different film. So, yeah, let's not go there. But yeah, that's pretty much how long I've been doing this, and obviously only now I'm starting to reap the benefits, such as being on here with you.
Yeah. You could even release a Taylor's version at this point because you're now older than 1989.
Yep.
Not
Well,
the year.
which is weird because I was born in 1992, but sure, I'll take it.
Sure. But anyways, jokes aside, let's get into our recommendations. What have you been watching recently that you really want people to know about?
Well, the film that I've rated the highest recently is a lovely little film. I think it's already come and gone in the US, but I think it's only just come out here in the UK. The Ballad of Wallis Island.
Okay.
Which is a very, when I first saw the trailer, when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, is this the new like John Carney film, the guy who did like Once and Begin Again? But I mean, very different kind of vibe I was going to. But this is a really lovely film about a guy, a very eccentric lottery winner, played by Tim Key, who UK fans will know for the for appearing alongside Steve Coogan in the Alan Partridge stuff. And he's accumulated this wealth through lottery winnings, and he brings this washed-up folk singer, played by Tom Basden, who's also one of the writers of the film. Tim Key also wrote it alongside him, and he's there, because he just needs the money to just like fund his next album, which is this really like cynical, pop-heavy,
Justin Timberlake, like.
Yeah, very Justin Timberlake like. But so he cuts there, and he realizes that the concert he's meant to be performing is actually a private concert with Tim Key's character as the only spectator. And things get even more awkward when when his ex, who's played by Kerry Mulligan, also comes into the picture. They used to perform together, but they don't anymore. And like things are rekindled, things might not always be as they seem. And no, and I honestly I thought this was a very lovely film. It was so filled with passion and humanity and heart, and it's filled with characters like, I mean, Tim Key's character. This is a character that so easily could have been like really overly obnoxious, quirky, kind of annoying, like really socially awkward, kind of like what you'd picture someone like Josh Gad playing in a movie. But he really plays it with a lot of sincerity, and it's yeah, you really love this character. You love all the little quirks that he kind of has going on. He's got a little thing going on with the local shopkeeper, who's Sean Clifford from Fleabag, and yeah, there's got some lovely music as well. I think Tom Basden and Kerry Mulligan performed some of the songs in it, and yeah, it didn't really get a lot of attention in the US, I don't think, because it debuted at Sundance, and then it kind of got like a limited release, and then it kind of came and went. And then over here, it's not gotten like a huge wide release, but it's been in enough cinemas where it was showing where I am. So it's obviously not that limited, but I really found that to be utterly joyful. I really was beaming from cheek to cheek, just from how wonderfully it was played out and performed. And yeah, it's one of the livelier films I've seen so far this year, which, after everything that's gone on so far this year, I think we all need a bit of liveliness.
Yeah. I did see this actually. I saw this back in April.
Oh, okay.
In a triple feature with King of Kings and Warfare, which, but by the way, I would not recommend that triple feature.
No, well, there's a level of holiness, I guess, and all throughout all three of them, very different.
Yeah. I was like min-maxing my day. I was like, I really want to catch up on a lot of stuff, so I just picked the three that lined up together the most that I actually wanted to see. But yeah, I saw that back in April. Pretty decent movie. I don't think I liked it necessarily, but because I think the story could have used some polishing, um, especially in the second or third act. I think it's more like a 5-act movie because it has really high highs and really low. I think I described this movie as the musical version of Banshees of Inisherin.
Well, it's a bit livelier than that. I mean, because it's
A little bit, yeah.
It's also based on a short film. It was nominated for a BAFTA over here. I think it had the very mouthy title of something like "The One and Only Herb Maguire Plays Wallis Island" or something. I get I get what you're coming. It is a very loosely structured film. I'd almost describe it as a hangout film. Whereas, one of the hangers out happens to be this odd millionaire who just happens to get his favorite folk singers to hang out with him. So, yeah, I mean, I get where it comes from. It is very loose, but it all does tie well together. I think anyway.
Yeah. It was more a personal preference thing where I think I'm really big on character development, and I was just like, I wanted that last 10% of character development that would have really sold it for me. Would have gone from I think I rated it 3 stars on Letterboxd. I think it would have gone to 5 if it just did a little bit more.
That's fair. I mean, for me, it gave me just about enough. Well, I felt like if I spent like too much time focusing on like things that don't necessarily matter, maybe it might have been a bit more indulgent, but like overall I came out with the only reason it's like a 4 out of 5 for me and not the full 5 is because like I came out with a sense of sadness that I was kind of like leaving that really nice little universe and had to go back to this really crappy one that we're in. So I mean, that's really the only reason why it's not the full 5, but it comes very close.
Yeah, maybe I'll rewatch it again now that it's on Peacock here in the US. I definitely these are the kind of films I like to go back and rewatch because it could have just been it was the third film at the end of a very long day. It could have just been that. So
Well, when you go through like a literal war zone and the whole life of Jesus, then it's watching a film about just folk singers might be a bit too overboard. So I can get it.
yeah, and it was 5 p.m. at this point by the time I got out, I think. So I was like,
Oh Lord.
and I got there at like the movie theater by like 10. So yeah, it was a full shift, as they say. But
Nice.
I have a controversial recommendation.
Ooh, do tell.
Because I know a lot of people hated this movie when it came out. I am going to recommend an A24 film called Opus.
Okay.
I know everyone in my friends group that I've talked to really despises the way this movie, like the way the plot goes, but I actually really liked how it is. So I guess I should probably fill people in. Opus stars Io Edeberry, and basically she's this magazine writer. Well, not really magazine writer. She works at a magazine and is invited to the release of this album. I forget who the artist's name is, but the actor's name is, oh god,
John Malkovich.
thank you. John Malkovich, so you know what you're signing up for there. He's very eccentric.
Yeah, John Malkovich is basically playing Jared Leto. That's all I'll say for now.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect analogy because it is very much 30 Seconds to Mars-esque music that he plays. And it's a really interesting look at star power and cults, I think. It gets into that um, with respect to a lot of that without spoiling it, obviously. But it's almost like a murder mystery, I think. That at least that's the way the story plays out, is we are trying to figure out what is going on the entire movie. And I don't know, I just really like that. I know a lot of movies do that nowadays where it's like what is going on? I don't know. There's creepy stuff happening, but it's smart about it. I don't think it ever holds your hands and says, hey, here's exactly what is happening in this moment. It trusts you to make those conclusions yourselves. And maybe that's why it was a bit divisive, but I loved it. It's available for rent. I don't think it's on Max yet, which is probably where it'll end up on in the US at least, because A24 has a streaming deal with well, HBO Max now, actually. HBO Max. Again. HBO Max now again.
Yeah, it tends to flip flop a lot. Sounds sums up the David Zaslav years in a nutshell. Yeah, I'll admit I'm one of the quite many people who didn't really like this film all that much. I mean, I get where it's coming from. I get what it's trying to do. Really, kind of lead you down this like, oh, this is this weird like occult personality surrounded by John Malkovich, who to be fair is having a good time here. Like he's I mean there's a reason, like, I mean, not just like there's a reason I likened him to Jared Leto, because it's not just like the music, like there is a genuine like sinister cult leader vibe going off of him. I think for me, the big issue with the film is that, you know, it has this decent setup, but it never really goes anywhere with it. Like I felt like it just went from like 0 to 11 very fast in the climax, where it just felt like, okay, maybe you could have at least like gone a bit like, you know, done it a bit in a different way, I guess. I don't know, but like I wasn't really impressed by it. I felt it was very, you know, it felt very full of itself, very like stereotypically A24, if that makes sense. You know,
No, that does.
artsy for the sake of it, I guess, and not really as deep as it perhaps thinks it is. So yeah, I wasn't really into Opus, but fair play to you and anyone else that did get into it. You know, it just wasn't my thing personally.
And that's fair. I think the only knock I have against the movie is in the opening credits, you get this like montage of people dancing to this guy's music. And they have like literal stars in their eyes. They have like a little star effect in their eyes. And that's never really followed up upon. It's just, hey, that's the thing we have in this movie. Um, that would be my main gripe with the movie, and that's very little to me because I think it does a decent enough job for me. Again, I know I am in like the 0.1% of people who like this movie, so and I'm fine with that.
I mean, I didn't like outright hate the film. I think that again, there is some stuff to admire. I think it just needed like another rewrite or so before it really kind of nailed what it wanted to say, but it just didn't really do it in a very like coherent way. But again,
I
you
can see
know, I
that.
think I can see it becoming like maybe a little bit of a underappreciated cult hit in you know, no pun intended, in the next few years. I mean, if people do see it on HBO Max and find this little quirky thing, then yeah, I can see that happening. But I mean, after all, people are still raving about Babylon, and that movie didn't do very well with critics at all when it came out. I'm one of the few that actually really loved the film, and I think it's only going to get better over time, as we'll find out. But that's, I don't know whether that happens with Opus. Who knows?
Who knows? All right. So now that we've talked about recommendations, talked about your work. Let's get into what I'm assuming, what I hope people are here for, our discussion on the live action remake of Lilo and Stitch. So first things first, what were your expectations for the film?
Well, with all these live action Disney remakes, I think it's fair to say that there weren't really any expectations going in. I mean, like, at this point, I've seen so many of them, know what to expect. I think I'm just kind of numb to it all, I guess. So, like, I wasn't really expecting. I mean, I'll say this at the very least. I was expecting something that wasn't as written off as the Snow White remake, which I do still persist is fine. It's not the best of them, but like it's far from as bad as many people were saying it would be. Only because, like, I mean, regardless of what your thoughts may be on the film, I mean, Rachel Zegler was just meant to be a movie star. I think she really does carry that film. I think she definitely makes it more worthwhile, even beyond the horrendous dwarf designs. So, but with Lilo and Stitch, there wasn't really much. I was saying, I think I said in the other episode, like, I think my memories of the original, they're there, but like they're not as fond as they were perhaps when I did see it first, like 20 or so years ago. So I was expecting, I think the rewatch certainly prepared me for what to expect from the new version to see how it would kind of like line up. And let's just say that it does, but not exactly in the way that I was expecting to, which I don't know. It sounds like I'm being vague, but honestly, I mean, I mean, there's not a whole, I mean, I don't know. I know there's a lot to say about the film, but at the same time, it it just whatever you're expecting from a Disney remake at this point, this is going to be no different.
Yeah, and I had really high, maybe stupidly high expectations because I'm like, oh, you're getting the director of Marcel the Shells with Shoes On, which was one of my favorite movies of what 2022, 2023. So he's got the pedigree, and you're bringing back the original voice of Stitch. And I didn't find this out till later, but you're also bringing back some of the voice actors to be in the movie.
Yeah,
Not
Tia
at,
Carrera
not at,
is Tia
yeah,
Carrera's in there.
and David Scott. Oh gosh,
Oh, Jason Scott Lee, yeah.
yes, he's in there as well. But yeah, like, so I'm like, okay, and I saw all of Dean Flesher Camp's, TikToks about the film and how much reverence he paid for it. So that really raised my expectations pretty high. Be like, okay, this is just going to be a shot for shot remake, which I'm fine with. I mean, granted, I know we'll probably draw comparisons to How to Train Your Dragon here pretty soon, but I think I'm fine with shot for shot remakes if it makes the original material better. Like Aladdin 2019, for example. I think Aladdin, I'm grab your pitchforks in the comments, but I actually think Aladdin 2019 is a really great movie. It's probably the best of the remakes outside of maybe Beauty and the Beast 27. But yeah, I had really high expectations. Were they met? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, I think that brings us to our first impressions since we're already kind of talking about them. Like walking out of the theater, I know you've rewatched the remake last night.
Yeah, in preparation for this, yeah.
So yeah, what were your thoughts walking out the first time versus the second time?
Well, it's interesting you bring up the Aladdin 2019 because I mean like many people, I love the original Aladdin. I think it's one of Disney's funniest films. I mean, Robin Williams is iconic as the genie. May he rest in peace. Yeah, I didn't. I just went into the 2019 one, the Guy Ritchie one, and a lot of it just kind of went in one ear out the other, left no impression on me whatsoever. And I can pretty much say the same thing about Lilo and Stitch 2025. It's I mean, again, I can't say that my expectations were met because I had no expectations, but Yeah, this is just again, I'm just numb to it at this point. So this is just okay. This is them, but live action. They're doing this now, and they're calling back to this, and it's all very standard. I will say I've seen worse of these films. This isn't the worst by any means, but it's a little, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's disheartening because I mean all these films have their own lack of heart anyway, but like it's pretty much exactly what I thought it would be, but not exactly in the best way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with your sentiment that it has no heart because it feels like it just takes too long to get to where it needs to go. For starters. But as for the heart, it just really doesn't have any. It's like somebody said, "How can we make Lilo and Stitch work?" That I guess kind of spoiler real quick. There's no ugly duckling thing, which was the whole point of like Stitch's redemption arc. And I'm sure we'll get into it more in spoilers. The themes of Ohana are completely thrown off in this movie. I don't know. It just felt so. This is the first Disney remake I think I've seen that actually felt soul. That felt like I hesitate to say cash grab, but that's kind of what it felt like sitting in that theater.
hmm I wouldn't say it's completely soulless. I mean, again, I've seen the Lion King remake, so that stuff is soulless right
That's
there.
fair. Yeah.
I mean, this one at least like the CG characters in this at least look convincing enough. They actually have emotion, and plus this movie is not a shot by shot remake either way. But I think for me, what this version of Lilo and Stitch is, I mean, I think just to get into my biggest criticism I have with it, and I noticed this especially when I rewatched it yesterday as a recording. The pacing is really off. Like I don't know if you got that from when
Yeah.
you saw it, but like it felt like it was really just like rushing towards all of the beats in the original story. Like I mean, 1 minute we're in space with Stitch and the Galactic Federation or whatever, and then cut almost immediately to the Grand Councilwoman, voiced by Hannah Waddingham in this, sending Jumba and Pleakley off to Earth to get him, and then cut right to Hawaii. Lilo feeding the sandwich to the fish, on her going right to hula class, and it really feels like a crash course in that opening sequence from the original, and it felt so off, and the editing is not good in this, I have to say, because it's very choppy, and it just really just kind of, there's no room to breathe initially. It just kind of pushes you along, doesn't really give you any time to get to know any of these characters. The only parts you know about them is what you remember of them from the original, and it just kind of does not give you a moment to really kind of bask in it all. Because like the Hawaii setting, I mean, yeah, it's more like it's certainly real and everything. They, it looks like they actually shot there, but like obviously you can't obviously replicate the watercolor stuff in live action, but I mean that sort of gave it a bit more atmosphere, and it just felt like, oh, this is just what we filmed on the beach that day.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very poorly paced film. It's a very poorly edited film, and it just feels like they really kind of rang it through the ringer in the editing room, the studio, by the studio. I don't necessarily blame Dean Fleischer Camp for this, because as we've seen with Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, he can create a film with a lot more empathy than this. I think I would bet very good money that the movie was taken off his hands and Lundgren just like strung to pieces in the editing room, because that's really what it feels like here.
And he certainly alluded to losing a lot of fights about how the movie was being directed. But chiefly, I think the prime example was he was talking about, obviously Pleakley's costume design. He originally wanted the Pleakley we get in the original animated movie, where he's very obviously cross-dressing in that movie. But Disney, he says taking him at his word that Disney rejected that idea.
I mean, I can buy that, because I know, I mean, Disney is quite famously not one to appease the LGBT community, which is a very disappointing step. But we can't piss off China or Russia or whatever. So yeah, that's that. I mean, that's a whole other conversation. I mean, like,
Yeah.
them getting rid of the cross-dressing, I mean, yeah, that is a funny gag in the original. I will admit they do kind of at least spice it up a little bit, because Jumba and Pleatley, to fit in, they have to like clone themselves, and it just so happens they get the very voice actors who are playing them. So Zach Galifianakis as Jumba and Billy Magnussen as Pleatley. So they've had to find like I think like hotel staff, and they just like clone them and just kind of become them as like cloaking devices. So I will give them props that they at least kind of get around that, because I think just seeing like a couple of clearly aliens, in obvious disguises, yeah, that is part of the joke. But in a more quote unquote realistic environment, I do see why that would be a bit weird. And even with the whole completely cross dressing thing, again, yeah, that is kind of missing from here. But I mean, from some of the outfits that Billy Magnussen was wearing, it's like, oh, they know exactly what they were doing, putting him in that sort of stuff. So which is cool. Yeah, if they did make Pleakley all out gay as his outfit would have suggested, I mean that would have been cool. But they're obviously not going to do that. But yeah, I think that's for me anyway. I think they at least try to get around all that, but whether or not it works is entirely up to the viewer. But for me, it works. I'm guessing it didn't really for you.
No, it didn't. But it just felt like a half step for me. It just felt like, okay, here's the concession. We're not going to have the cross dressing, but we'll have like a disguised device. But
yeah, I get it. It's I mean, not every decision is great, but they at least tried to do something about it. Whether or not it works is subjective. But yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, it wasn't really the least annoying thing about that. I honestly kind of felt like, I mean, I did find Pleakley in the original a little annoying. I mean, he was just kind of like, very, no, 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 no. Whereas in this one, I mean, for whatever reason, Billy Magnussen, he's giving him like a voice that's kind of like, it sounds kind of like, oh my God, what's that kind of like, what's that weird character from Adventure Time? Like the one that's always like complaining and everything. I can't remember what their name is. I don't know. Hopefully Adventure Time listeners or watchers will know exactly what character I'm referring to, but I can't remember.
yeah, I haven't watched the show, so I don't know.
But yeah, that took a little bit of getting used to, but like, and I know that a lot of complaints about the movie, like at least ones I've seen online, is seems to be how Jumba is portrayed in this. Which I don't know if you want to get into that here or into spoilers, but I mean, it's let's just say it's different.
Well, let's get into the full extent in spoiler. But I'll use that as like a transition point to talk about the cat. Which, by the way, before I get into that, I do agree with you on the pacing. It is very paint by numbers. It needed another 30 minutes, like we said in the 2002 animated podcast when we were covering it. Not that the podcast was animated, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was kind of animated by the way we were talking about it.
Yeah. But yeah, it needed a excuse me, extra 30 minutes, and yeah, it is very paint by numbers, because when Myrtle gets pushed, here I don't even know that that's Myrtle.
Yeah, it's just some random girl. I mean, to be fair, that girl was kind of like made a snide comment, but like, it's like, I mean, yeah, she did kind of like push into her a little bit, and yeah, I get that. So, but yeah, it wasn't immediately apparent that that's who that was. It was just some random girl, random mean girl.
Yeah, who are the standout performers for you in this movie?
Okay, well, I think it goes without saying that the best part of Lilo and Stitch is Lilo and Stitch. Maya Kealoha, I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. I hope young girl who plays Lilo. I think she delivered a great performance. This felt like this really did feel like a little kid, but with some of Lilo's quirks, and but obviously it's not quite the same as Davy Chase in the original. But I think, for what she was given, I think Maya Kealoha really knocked it out of the park. She just was so adorable, and Stitch, of course. It's cool seeing Chris Sanders back in this role. I think sounding still very similar. I don't know if even know if they use like the same audio clips of like like all that stuff. But
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was on TikTok last night and somebody was doing comparisons of the audio clips of that Miguel Nalagrista, and it is the exact same from the 2002 movie to the 2025 movie.
yeah,
So
it wouldn't surprise me because like I mean it is such a I mean, I don't know if Chris Sanders can just like do that voice just off the bat, like Andy Serkis can do with Gollum. But like, if he didn't like re-record it for this film, then it wouldn't surprise me if they used the original 2002 file. But either way, the newer stuff that Chris Sanders gets, I mean, Stitch is a bit more communicative in this one,
yeah.
especially towards the third act. Which I mean, sometimes I'm a bit okay. That doesn't sound completely right coming out of his mouth, but whatever. The essence of it is still there at least. So yeah, I think they were really good. I really liked the actor who played Nani. I cannot remember her name for the life of me, and I feel really bad for that because she actually did a pretty solid job.
Sydney Elizabeth Agudong, if I'm saying
That's
that
it.
right.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she was really good. I think she and Maya Kealoha, Nani and Lilo did, it's not the same as the original, all right? It doesn't have quite the same rhythm or even much of the heart, but they're trying. The actors are really trying, and and sometimes they really do nail it. They do nail the connection that these sisters have. They still feel like sisters. They fight, they make up, they fight again, all that stuff. And you definitely feel a lot more of Nani's struggle in this because, I mean, in addition to, trying to work a full-time job and looking after her little sister and dealing with social services, I mean, she's also got a lot of other stuff going on, like all the stuff that she's had to give up in order to raise her sister, which I'm sure we'll get into later on as well. But she's worked into the plot fairly well. She definitely gives it a bit more of a heft. I mean, again, Nani in the original is Nani, and she's a perfectly fine character. They just give her a lot more to deal with here, than more than just like looking at the potentially losing her sister. And that stuff was fine. Additions like that I was okay with. It's just the way that they're kind of like strung together is a bit off. I feel like you said, I think the film really could have benefited from just more time to just like allow these moments to breathe rather than just, we're here now. Now we're here. Now we're here. Now we're here until all the ending credits.
Yeah, I agree. And I think my standout performers are a little different than yours. I like Sydney as well, as Nani. Oh gosh, what was the girl's name? As
Maya Kealoha,
Lilo.
yeah.
Yeah, those were the two standouts because Chris Sanders as Stitch was fine, I think, but it did come off as like, I don't know. Was Stitch more irritating for you in this movie?
Not really. I think if anything, he was a bit more a bit more calm, I guess. Which I mean, when he spoke, especially, that scene where he's got like that's bad, like that sort of thing. You could tell the character Stitch is written to be less chaotic, I guess, than in the original. Whereas, before he was just like all over the mannequin, all over the place, and to an extent he is in this as well. But like, I think the transition's a bit wobblier here. Like, when he starts like fully communicating, like during like the end, you're saying like really generic, like, "Oh, Granito, we have to go," or something like that. Like, it felt a bit weird coming out of a character who, up until that point, hasn't quite got the hang of like speaking full sentences. So it was a bit weird to hear that coming out of Stitch's mouth. But other than that, I think Chris Sanders did fine, no matter how much of the original 2002 files they used for some of his recordings.
Yeah, agreed. And I think some of the craziness uh, that I might be perceiving might be just because I saw this in a packed theater full of kids, so that might have amplified it a little bit. But I will give some honorable mentions to Zach Galifianakis and Billy Magnussen. They do a serviceable job here as Jumba and Pleakley. I think they do a really good job at like giving it their own spin. Do I want to see Zach Galifianakis play Jumba ever again? No. If they make a Lilo and Stitch or Stitch the movie and Lilo and Stitch 2, I do not want to see Zach Galifianakis' face at all.
Yeah, because it's weird because Zach Galifianakis, I mean, obviously that he is in the film quite a bit like as himself, and he's doing some weird like mugging, like he's like showing his teeth a lot, and he's just kind of
Yeah, like he's got veneers.
yeah, and I kind of get it when that comes from obviously like an alien trying to be human, and it just comes off as awkward, but in this case, it really comes off as awkward. Like it felt like Zach Galifianakis. I mean, obviously he's used to like being like on funny sets, obviously the Hangover or like Birdman, stuff like that. But like it felt like he was just kind of it felt like he and Billy Magnussen to an extent maybe were just there just for like the free trip to Hawaii, which is I wouldn't turn that down if I was like casting something like that, but it all took place in like the Bahamas or something. Like, yeah, sign me up. I don't care if I'm being screamed at by Adam Sandler half the movie. But yeah, I get but I think as well Zach Galifianakis, because in the original Jumba's David Ogden Steers, and as we know, he had quite a magnificent, like really booming, very Russian kind of approach to Jumba, which a Russian alien is kind of weird anyway, but that's by the by. Where it was David Ogden Steers, he was a professional voice actor, and he really kind of put all this booming like a gravitas to Jumbo. Where is my creation being unleashed? Whereas here it's just like, hey, I'm Zach Galifianakis. That sounds more like Billy Magnussen's Pleakley more than anything, but you get what I mean. And I mentioned Billy Magnussen earlier. It was kind of like, oh, he was really talking like this for some reason, a bit like Stitch. And it can get a little annoying, but I don't know. Pleakley's just an annoying character anyway, whether he's like screeching in the original or ordering this in the new version. You just take it or leave it. I don't know. It was what it was for them anyway.
Like it almost made me crave the more flamboyantness of the voice acting in the 2002 movie. I would be okay if Pleakley in this movie was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" It's kind of like that because it kind of fits the character. I mean, doesn't Pleakley even show the first thing we see of him in this movie is him in like a sheriff hat?
Yeah, he's dressed as a cowboy for some reason.
Yeah.
Which he was at least dressed in like proper Federation attire in the original before he went to Earth, which makes it all the weird that he's suddenly dressed as a cowboy. Whereas it's like, I mean, I get you're a Earth expert. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to be wearing Earth attire all the time in outer space. That was pretty weird.
Yeah, and my Toy Story brain was like, is this like a Toy Story thing? But that's me like taking leaps and bounds here.
To infinity and beyond, if you were.
Yeah. Like, anytime I see a sheriff hat in a Disney movie, I'm like, is this an Easter egg?
Probably. But yeah, so that's that sort of stuff as well. I mean, Jumba and Pleakley, their designs are fairly close to the original. I mean, Jumba looks more like a mole here than it does an alien, but like
that's weird.
Pleakley looks a bit at least more alien-like, whereas Jumba's kind of more like a modified mole. Like, are you sure you're not one of the past 625 experiments, Jumba, my guy?
Which is going to make it harder. I'm bringing in some lore here because I recently rewatched Stitch the movie. Like, if they do Stitch the movie, how are they going to do Hamster? I mean, he's just a ball of fur.
Yeah, they'll find a way to make that weird, and for some reason, it'll be voiced by Josh Gad.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, that's who they'll get.
That you're probably right. But like the alien designs, jumping off what you said, it kind of looks jelly-like.
It is very jelly-like, especially Pleakley. especially Pleakley, yeah, he was definitely looking a lot more moist in this one, and that's before even they reach a hot climate like Hawaii. So it was just like, okay, this is someone's obviously got weird sweat glands in outer space, or I don't know what it is.
And it's like you can almost see the liquid in the eye. It's like, ugh.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very off-putting, and I think like a lot of these Disney remakes, I think they try a bit too hard to like turn the very much more animated characters into something more photorealistic, and it's almost always like nightmare fuel. I mean, I didn't mind the Beauty and the Beast remake. I know a lot of other people didn't like it, but I was fine with it. But like when you compare like the designs of like Lumiere and Cogsworth in the original compared to how they are in the remake, I mean, it's a lot less charming. Let's put it that way. And it's
Yeah.
very much the same with what they've done with Pleakley as well. Like I get wanting to stay close to the original design of the character, but you know, some things don't necessarily look better when they're photorealistic. I mean, again, to bring up the Lion King remake, I mean, the animals in that, I mean, you might as well have been shooting like actual animals because they're not emoting, they're not really saying or doing anything that's not from the original, and it doesn't look very appealing. I mean,
Yeah, I was waiting for
the actual effect. Yeah, yeah, I think I mentioned this last time when I brought it up, because like you could almost do like the Lion King like as a silent movie and just have David Attenborough narrate the whole thing, and it would just honestly be so much better. But you know, hey, we wouldn't have Seth Rogen, Pumbaa, and Billy Eichner Timon, I guess. I don't know.
you know, lion in his natural habitat, where the lion does, in fact, sleep tonight.
Here we see the warthog and the meerkat telling a young lion cub that he has no worries, despite the fact that his fucking father just died. Sorry for the swearing for a Disney talking about a Disney film, but I think you get my point. Plus, you know, as the token Brit guy here, you know, I think it's only fair that I do the David Attenborough impression, but yours was good too.
Fair.
Yours was good too. But yeah, no, I think it's a very weird line to cross, because on the one hand, I get not wanting to upset like diehard fans of the original. Like if you go too far off course, then you'll get like endless hate from them. Whereas if you stay too true to them and it ends up looking quite horrific in live action, then you're screwed either way. But it's like, I don't know, it just kind of was what it was.
Yeah. And speaking of it was what it was, to reference the Harry Styles songs, let's talk about like how sparingly this movie is actually about Hawaii.
Yeah, it's Hawaii is more of an afterthought, which is weird because I mean, obviously, it is Hawaii. I mean, I don't know if they filmed there or anything, but I mean, when you look at the original, and like I said, the watercolor backdrops and the very kind of like are very artistic ways they made Hawaii look, you know, all the surfing on the waves and stuff, it looked quite lovely. And whereas here it just again just looks like general beach stuff. It doesn't look as interesting. It's not as colorful. It's just I mean, it's again, to bring up the Lion King again, when you see Africa in the original animated version, it looks so grand. It looks so majestic, so colorful. Whereas in the 2019 one, it just looks like any other bland landscape, which to be fair is probably what the African plains look like in real life, but that doesn't always make solid visual entertainment. Yeah, I think they really kind of it screwed up a little bit with depicting Hawaii, because like it just it didn't feel quite right enough. It just felt like it was just there, whereas you really felt its presence in the original.
It felt like they could have shot this in San Diego. I mean, I did look it up, and they did film in Oahu, I think is how you
Okay.
pronounce it.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But like, I couldn't tell. This could have been shot on a back lot.
I mean, the scene's set in the house, probably. I mean, because that's a very specific set, and certain specific things happen to. It wouldn't surprise me if that was like on a on a back lot, but like, yeah, it's a very. It didn't utilize it as well, and I think it was just. I think it was just a case of we can shoot here because we can, and not necessarily because it's where the original took place. So I think, yeah, no, I think they just kind of. And I hesitate to say like it's an excuse for them to go to just go on a trip to Hawaii, because that's usually Adam Sandler's stick. But when an actual Happy Madison movie, like Just Go With It, actually looks more Hawaiian than the actual movie meant to be set in Hawaii, that's, you know, you kind of screwed up in some way.
Well, not only that, I don't really feel like this is a spoiler, but like this is a pet peeve of mine for the movie. So in the animated version, it's pretty much like at the top of the hill. The house is at the top of the hill. So there's this like long winding road, and it's pointed out very often that it is dangerous to get up to that house. And this one, it's just like in the middle of a street or something.
I didn't. I thought it took place on a hill. It looks fairly. It looked fairly remote, I guess.
Huh.
Like it didn't seem like a street or anything. It did feel like more like a hill or anything. I mean, I know maybe it's because
The
because there
neighbors are like
isn't.
right across the road.
Yeah, the neighbors are right across the road. I mean, they're new characters. The elderly neighbor, I can't remember the actor's name who plays the elderly woman, but I mean, she and David, who's in this, and they found a way to somehow make him even more pointless. But they're involved somehow. Maybe they're like relatives or something, I don't know, but like, but they're all across the way, and they're there to like provide some help and stuff in the climax and all this stuff, and they play a role in the actual conclusion, which again we'll get into later. But maybe it's because of their presence that maybe it felt like street, because I didn't feel that this was set on a street at all. Like I felt like this was still much more of a secluded place than even the original, and even that was already pretty remote as well.
Then maybe I'm just misremembering. It just felt very like, oh, people can get to her very easily.
Well, that doesn't take away that. I mean, yeah, it is very easy to get to. I mean, the social worker who is Tia Carrera in this one, Nani communicated with Nani is always very weird. But yeah, that nobody seems to have any trouble getting there. I mean, even Jumba finds the place fairly easily.
Yeah, faster than he does in the animated movie.
Yeah, because in the original, I mean, I think he's just chasing Stitch, and he just happens to end up there. Whereas, you know, in this new one, he just kind of finds him just out of luck, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's more of a. Yeah, I'd say the house is fairly remote.
Yeah. So maybe I'm just misremembering then. But I know one thing I am not misremembering. There's far less Elvis in this movie.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
Again, like with the Hawaii identity, it's much more of an afterthought. Like, I mean, you do get the shot of Lilo pulling out the record with Elvis on it, and you know she's playing it like in the original, and there's like beats of like Suspicious Minds, Hound Dog, and Devil in Disguise, you know, on the right places and all that stuff. But I mean, they in the original they really kind of tried tying Elvis a lot more into the actual arc of Stitch. You know, Lilo's trying to like use Elvis as like an example of a model citizen to help Stitch become good, which ends with Stitch just kind of like dressing up as Elvis and performing on the beach. And like in this one, Stitch doesn't even dress up as Elvis until the end credits. Yeah. So it's I think it's just there because it was something that was part of the original, and we'd be crucified if we didn't include Elvis in some way. So yeah, I mean, and plus, yeah, I'm sure like at that point, even Disney with all its billions of dollars, I'm sure they had some legal issues, like really trying to work in the whole Elvis stuff in a sense. So maybe it's just a cost cutting effect thing on their end.
Yeah, and it just felt very apparent that there was less of that. I mean, you get that one scene. I don't think this is a spoiler, where you know she opens Stitch's mouth, and you know he acts like a Bluetooth speaker. Yeah, he acts like a Bluetooth speaker there. Yeah, that's pretty much the only notable time I was like, oh, Elvis is kind of in this.
I think that's a good way of saying he's kind of in this. Like Hawaii is kind of in this, and
Yeah,
a lot of this is kinda, you know. Like, I think it's important to note that I think this movie was originally destined for Disney Plus, like Lady and the Tramp and Pinocchio was, but I think for somewhere along the way they decided to go theatrical instead. And honestly, you can kind of tell that this was
yeah,
originally a straight to streaming movie because it kind of has that weird like ADHD pacing to it. Like it's paced in a way that like, oh, people are just going to watch at home, so they're not going to be paying attention to it all the time, so we could just do whatever. They're just going to be on their phones or whatever. But in the cinema, obviously, it's very different. So you need to. I think there was a bit of an oversight. They could have at least like edited it in a way the way you can. You really do need to pay attention to this, whereas all just like speed going through it with such speed, like it's made for people with such short attention spans. Like, yeah, I know we're in an era where TikTok is king and all that sort of stuff, but like it's very worrying that our lack of concentration is going into all these things now. Like, didn't I hear recently that is it Netflix that's creating like content for people to listen
yes,
to while they're like busy on their phones and stuff, so that they always
yeah,
have to like say what's going on like it's a bloody radio play.
yes. That was Netflix. They're basically doing their version of it. It's essentially audio description at that point. If you're like, I'm picking up a coffee mug, I am drinking
Because God
from the
forbid,
coffee
you
mug.
know, because God forbid people actually pay attention to what's going on the screen.
It's yeah, that's yeah, that whole stuff is depressing because I'm just like, just that we have these phones that have like specifically when I'm watching a movie, I put my iPhone on the focus mode where it's like, hey, I'm watching something, turn my screen into dark mode, dim the screen to like 10%. Don't let any calls or anything come through. I don't want to even feel a vibration from my Fitbit. No, none of that. So you just got to use the tools. I feel like, and if your attention span is so cooked that you can't even watch a what is this 90-minute movie?
A 90, 100, but yeah, roughly hour and a half. Yeah.
Like if you can't even do that, start off with a TV show. Like Murderbot is 22 uh minutes. That's easy. Easy breezy. Probably 15 minutes without credits.
Or just like old episodes of The Simpsons or Family Guy, you know, like just something to
Yeah.
really just kind of it tells a story, 3 acts, 20 minutes, in out, boom, boom, you're good. Yeah,
And
if you can do that for 20 minutes, you could do that for 90. I mean, it's not
yeah,
that
just like
hard.
build up
Yeah,
from there.
I mean, look, maybe it's a whole generational thing. Maybe I'm just old when I'm
Yeah,
just
we're just
calling it
yelling at
that.
the cloud.
Yeah, I don't know. It sucks being in your 30s. um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's not. Maybe we just have a general attention problem. But yeah, won't stop me from complaining.
But yeah, I do wonder what this film would be like if they had executed on that Disney Plus original plan. Because you brought that up, and I keep thinking of Moana 2. That was
Mm,
going to be Moana the series, and you can blatantly see the transitions to each episode
yeah,
of the show. Like
yes.
it's like I dare anyone to watch Moana 2 and say and just try to find the edit points. I don't think you would even have to try. I mean, there are clear like, oh, this is episode 2, this is episode 3, this is episode 4. This um it, anyway, and I wonder what would happen if this was allowed to come out on Disney Plus. Would it be as successful as it is? I think it had a what 340 million domestic last time I checked.
it's really climbing up. Like it's just gone on like the third weekend in a row as of recording this at #1 at the box office. Like it's outperforming like the new John Wick movie, and it's I mean it's even outdoing Mission Impossible, which I think they were kind
Mhm.
of doing like a Barbenheimer thing with like those two going up against each other, but it hasn't quite had the same effect. Obviously, more people seem to like Mission Impossible than they do Lilo and Stitch, which fair play to them. I think
Not a
Mission
high
Impossible
bar.
it is a pretty high bar. Yeah, I mean the Final Reckoning is a pretty good movie, but like way better than Lilo and Stitch anyway. But yeah, no, I mean obviously people are responding to it. I mean maybe it's the nostalgia playing because like all these remakes, I mean, regardless of your what you may think of them critically, most of them are pretty big hits. Like, I mean, they make money, sometimes billions, and they keep they power Disney to do what they do. But unfortunately, it's a bit of a bad trade because at that point you're pretty much just sacrificing any real creativity you have. I mean, what the next big Disney release, not including like Marvel or Star Wars or anything, I think it is another sequel, Zootopia 2, which I don't know if you've seen that trailer, but like my reaction to that Zootopia 2 trailer was like that clip of Krusty the Clown on The Simpsons where he just like watches that weird like Russian itchy and scratches like what the hell was that? Like I don't know
Yeah.
what that was, but it was just that did not make the movie look good at all. And I love the original Zootropolis as it is over here in the UK.
We do have Elio before that, but
Elliot, well, I don't know. Well, that's Pixar. I mean, at this point, does it count
oh,
as
you're
like
talking
pure
Disney proper?
Yeah, yeah, proper Disney, no offshoots or anything. Like, I
Okay,
mean,
yeah. So then yeah,
yeah.
Zootopia
Obviously,
2 in
obviously, I would
November.
have included like Fantastic Four and stuff in there as well. But like
Yeah.
proper Disney release, yeah, that's Zootopia 2. And then I don't think they've got any original, as far as I know. They don't have any lined up. Which, you know, the last original animated film they made was Wish, and that movie kind of sucked. So it's I'd like to see them make a live action remake of that, honestly, just to make it better. You know what? If you are going to do Disney live action remakes, remake the bad ones. Like I want to see like a live action Home on the Range or like the Black Cauldron or like really stuff that's considered some of the worst. You know, like just remake that stuff. You can actually improve on those rather than like films like Lilo and Stitch, like Aladdin,
Atlantis.
like Lion King, Beauty and the
And I'm
Beast.
not saying that's bad, by the way. I like
No,
Atlantis. I
no,
think a
no.
lot of people want that movie.
No, actually, that's why I didn't mention it. Yeah, I actually really liked Atlantis. I mean, you could honestly remake that movie, and honestly, it's the one movie I'm surprised they haven't remade at this point, and I kind of know why. I'm surprised they haven't remade Pocahontas.
Well,
I mean, I know why they haven't because I mean, it's a
that
lot
is a
of red tape
minefield.
there. It is a minefield and a half. But you know what? If they do decide to do that, I'd be like, okay, I kind of respect you guys again now. If you're gonna do it again like this, like kind of like what they did with Mulan, I'm just like, yeah, the balls on this studio.
Yeah. But that would be interesting at this movie. Um,
I can see that, yeah, because there is a good fan base for Atlantis, like, and it didn't really perform as well at the box office, but I kind of liked that it was doing something different at least. But hell, I've even got a soft spot for Treasure Planet, which I know is not quite as universally
so
loved
good.
either. I mean, it was only fairly recently that I found out, oh, a lot of people actually don't like this movie, which was like, why? It's Treasure
Really?
Planet. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Rewatched it pretty recently too.
It's
Getting back to the movie, before we give our rating, like what did you like most about Lilo and Stitch 2025, and what did you not like?
well, I did touch on this earlier, but I think the best part of the movie, or the best part of Lilo and Stitch, is Lilo and Stitch. Like, I mean, Lilo is adorable, Stitch is cute as hell. Like, they work well together. They're funny. They're very very cute to watch, and I think the young Maya Kealoha really did bring a lot to this role. She really made Lilo her own, and I think that deserves a huge amount of credit. So I think that's pretty much my favorite. I know it's boring to say, but yeah, my favorite part of Lilo and Stitch is Lilo and Stitch.
I don't think it's boring. I think that's kind of the hardest bar to clear in this movie. Because if Lilo and Stitch does not work, the movie does not work.
Yeah, I mean, it's called Lilo and Stitch, so they've got to be at the center of it. And luckily, they were fine. I mean, they were fine at worst.
And yeah, they're fine at worst. I think personally, what I like the most about it is trying to um bridge the gap between the 2002 movie and the 2025 movie. I really like the stuff with the social worker played by Tia Carrere, who played Nani in the original movie, and just generally how they tried to kind of make this both for the people primarily for the people who had watched the original, but also say, hey, yeah, we also know new kids are coming into this.
Yeah, I think we should also, we haven't really touched on the fact that Cobra Bubbles is in the movie, but he's not as big a presence. I mean, he shows up for a little bit, but he plays a semi-major role in the climax. But I mean, he's played by Courtney B. Vance in this, so yeah, you got Tia Carrere and Johnny Cocker involved, so that's pretty cool. Obviously, I mean, Ving Rhames was the voice of Cobra in the original, and Ving Rhames obviously brought he was basically Marcellus Wallace in a Disney film,
Yeah.
which is kind of great. I mean, but yeah, Courtney B. Vance again, like with Hawaii and with Elvis, he was just kind of there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it made a bit more sense that they gave the social worker role to Tia Carrere than Cobra Bubbles, because I mean, yeah, I get that part of the joke is that Cobra Bubbles obviously does not look like he is a social worker, and that's why that kind of character stands out. But again, it just felt like they had to rework that, and they had to put Cobra Bubbles in there somewhere, which was a little awkward. But I mean, it's Courtney B. Vance, and when he's allowed to, he's pretty cool. Oh, excuse me. That's you twice.
I'll cut that out. But yeah, I think he's probably my biggest disappointment of the movie. Because he's a character I really, really loved in the movie, the original movie, because again, it's a juxtaposition. Here you've got this big muscle bound guy playing a social worker, and it's just kind of a nice visual gag, but they do nothing with him here. I mean, they kind of rewrite his story too, which confused me all to bits. Yeah, like they don't even like I thought maybe they maybe include him in the prologue and maybe flesh more of the Galactic Federation and the joke he makes in the at the end of the original film where he's like, remember Roswell? That was me. Like you could have done so much with that character if you're gonna make him a clear-cut FBI agent in this movie. And they just don't do any of that. In fact, they seem inherently disinterested in including him at all until like the very end.
Yeah, he definitely felt more like an afterthought, which isn't Courtney B. Vance's fault, but like it's just like the character really is just like not really that engaged. I mean, he's just when he's introduced, he's just there already at the crash, at the spaceship crash, and he's introduced quite clunkily as like Agent Cobra Bubbles. What do you think about this one? So that was a little clunky, and then the way they kind of like try and shoehorn him into the social worker plot was a bit. Okay, you didn't need, I get that it's part of the original, but there had to be a better way to do it. And then yeah, he's just randomly like there throughout the rest of the film. He doesn't really have much to do other than just kind of like drive them to the right locations, I guess. But like aside from that, yeah, it was a bit of a waste, honestly.
But yeah, besides that, we've already talked about pacing being off, and all the things we didn't like. I think enough to fill hour and a half almost. So
Yeah.
let's get to ratings. Out of 5 stars, go. What do you think?
I'm gonna be fair. I'm gonna give it 2.5, which is like a 5 out of 10 for me. Like I think there are things that I think are fine about it, but at the end of the day, the negatives do kind of balance out the positives. So I really just kind of went for a middle of the road, kind of in one ear out the other, 2.5. What about you?
So I'm giving it just a straight 2, 2 out of 5, because I agree with everything you said. I just think it disappointed me more. Not just because I think high expectations can be a real weapon when you're talking about a remake, but yeah, it let me down in every single way, pretty much. Not so bad that I wanted to get up out of the and leave the theater, like I did with the Jungle Book when I first saw that a remake. So that's the only reason it's not a 1 star. But yeah, I thoroughly was disappointed with this movie.
Yeah, no, I honestly did prefer Snow White over this. I think I gave Snow White like 3 out of 5. Which, I mean, again, it really is just because like Rachel Zegler was carrying so much of that movie.
I still need to see that.
It's at least, trying something a little different while still staying true to the story. But just wait until you see the divorce, man. I mean, my goodness. But I do also, at this juncture, I think it's necessary to bring up the fact that I actually, before recording this episode today with you here, I actually did go out and see How to Train Your Dragon, the new one, which, funnily enough, is another live action remake of an animated film directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBois. Which, and I know I said this in the original episode we did together on the original, but if I had a nickel for every time that happened, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. How to Train Your Dragon, it's a strange one because, by all accounts, it shouldn't be, it shouldn't exist because it is the same movie. Like, it is the same pretty much the exact same shot for shot, almost line for line as the 2010 original. And so its existence is like null and void. So any criticisms you have about the original How to Train Your Dragon, like be they positive or negative, you can apply to this new one and it wouldn't be any different. The thing is, there's a lot more positives than there are negatives about How to Train Your Dragon, and they do apply to the new one. And which is weird because when you compare it to something like Lilo and Stitch, which technically is trying a few things that are different, like the cloaking devices with Jumba and Pleakley, the way that, certain characters are written, so how certain things play out, they are at least trying some things different. Whereas How to Train Your Dragon does not. It is exactly the same movie, but just with actual actors. But the reason that How to Train Your Dragon works better than Lilo and Stitch is because they know that they can't outdo the original, obviously. So by bringing in the original director, Dean DeBois, to make this new version, I mean, someone who really knows this universe, knows these characters, knows how to really ground this story in humanity and heart, I think that really makes a difference. And it actually does, it works better than it has any right to. Whereas this one, Lilo and Stitch, they took the basic elements of the original, brought in a whole new creative team, like Dean Fleischer Camper's director. I can't remember who the screenwriters are, but they aren't. I don't think they're the same as the original, unless they're credited for like based on Lilo and Stitch by blah blah blah. And they didn't do anything with it. I mean, which again they don't do with they don't do anything new with How to Train Your Dragon either. But it at least kind of retains that sense of charm, that sense of wonder. Again, whether or not it works is entirely up to you and whether you enjoyed the original How to Train Your Dragon or you didn't. But Lilo and Stitch, I found, was a lot more chaotic, and not in a good way, because you could just tell that it's the studio in control, it's their property, they can do whatever. Whereas DreamWorks, they got the original creative team to really kind of translate this into live action, and for the most part, even though it has no reason to exist whatsoever, I think they did a fairly decent job. So whereas this one, it's just like cookie cutter remake, let's make millions and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to close it out before we get to spoil them. I might check it out. How to Train Your Dragon 2025.
But again, like if you've, I want to reiterate, this movie, it doesn't do anything new. It doesn't do anything other than what you'd expect from How to Train Your Dragon. It is the same film. So, yeah, whether or not you enjoyed it, or I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon are, but like, if you like it, then you'll find the exact same things to like about this new one as well. But they just happen to be real people this time.
Real quick before we get into spoilers, I'll take a quick restroom break and
Yeah,
then we'll rejoin, or not
yeah,
rejoin, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
So
of
I'll
course, yeah.
pause recording now. Folks, before we delve into some spoilerific territory, here's a quick heads up for those who haven't seen Lilo and Stitch 2025 yet. We're about to go into detail about the movie's plot and everything in between. So if you want to avoid spoilers and skip ahead to whatever chapter, I don't know what it'll be marked yet. Maybe it'll be like final thoughts or social media plugs, something like that in the episode's description or on YouTube or wherever you watch or listen to this podcast. So let's talk about Stitch. How'd you feel about hit Stitch and his character arc?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I mean, point A to point B, it is kind of the same. It feels, I don't know, like, I mean, the essence of it is there, kind of, using that word again, kind of, but I felt that is a bit like missing. I don't know if you felt that as well.
I did very much. It felt like an entire act of his arc is mixed.
Hmm.
Like he goes from basically I need this girl to survive because Jumba and people are after me. To okay, now that I'm adopted, I need to fit in. To okay, everyone hates me. I'm gonna go back to the shelter and lie down. That's basically his whole arc. And I feel like there's something in between that second and third part of his arc that we just didn't get to see.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking about something like that similar in the original, where it felt like Stitch's arc going from this chaotic creation meant for destruction to suddenly like embracing like the whole family aspect, the Ohana. That also kind of felt a bit, I wouldn't say rushed, but it just felt very like sudden. It somehow feels more so in this because, like, I mean, there is you see sprinkles of it, like when he's with in that scene with Lilo in her bedroom where you know she's teaching him the hula dance and like kissing his nose and all that sort of stuff. So there's sprinkles of it, but like nothing substantial to where like, oh, he's suddenly, becoming like a good creation rather than what experiment 626 was designed for. So it felt, again, I think this is just the problem in both movies, where the progression just feels a bit sudden. There doesn't isn't as much room for development and stuff, but I don't know. I think I noticed it a little bit more perhaps in the original than I did here, but it doesn't mean that there's some stuff missing in this one too.
Interesting that you say you noticed it more in the original because I think it's inverse for me. I think because you have an entire scenes where Stitch is just on his own in the original. It made more sense. But in this,
Um,
you rarely see him alone.
yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, in the original, there is that ugly duckling motif, which
Yeah.
is not in this movie at all. But I felt like in the original, I think like I don't know, it just felt like a sudden switch, more like where he's just kind of like it just kind of like they're causing mischief with Lilo while Nani's trying to find work, and it will just lead to them just suddenly just surfing just to go their way. Whereas in this one, I mean, there's a slight connection, like Nani becomes like a surf instructor, and then they're just randomly surfing just cause.
I'm
Which
so
which
glad you brought that up
Mhm.
because that's the one scene where I'm like, oh, he's already good. Because to compare it to the original, in the original, he's basically forced to be on this surfboard
Yeah.
because they have to keep eyes on him at all times. But in this one, it's his idea. He sees like a pug riding on a surfboard, and he's like, I want to do that, basically.
Yeah, in the original, yeah, he's just kind of like dragged on, and then he slowly kind of like gets more used to it and enjoys it, and even like brings the board to Lilo. It's just like, oh, with his hands behind his back, and just like, can we do this again? Whereas in this one, yeah, it's just like, oh, I see the dog doing that. I must do that because I am trying to be dog right now. So yeah, I get that, but like, I don't know. I think in the original, I remember it being maybe just a bit more sudden that he's just suddenly trying to genuinely try and be good. Whereas in this one, you could just see the sprinkles a bit more, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I mean, obviously, that's one of many things that happened with Stitch in this movie, and it's not even the most major one. I don't know. I mean, all the stuff with I think all the stuff with Jumba pretty much annihilates that little inkling.
Yeah. Like, yeah, the whole stuff with Jumba is just, I don't know. It's just, I don't know how to describe it other than disappointing at this point.
I mean, I will say this. I think it makes more sense for Jumba to be the villain than that Captain Gantu guy from the original. He was one of the omissions that I was actually okay with. Like if anyone's going to be a villain, I'd rather it be someone who's actually like already a character rather than just this guy who's just brought in to just be nothing but an antagonist. Whereas
Sure.
I mean, so if they are going to have like a villain and stuff, it might as well be Jumba because he's already like set up to be one, and in the original, he just kind of like just becomes an ally out of nowhere, really, after spending the entire film trying to catch him and all that stuff. Whereas here, you do see his much more nefarious side. So there's that at least. But so I know that the transition of Jumba from that to like all out villain in this movie, I know that's causing some of the most controversy, I guess. Honest, I was fine with it. It makes more sense. I kind of that word again, kind of.
Hmm.
But it just at that point it just kind of becomes like, oh, he's just like Saturday morning cartoon villain, just like he's going to take Stitch back and turn him into 627 and remove all his lava. Wahaha. And
I'm
that's
glad
where
you
it kind of
mentioned
lost
that.
me.
I am so glad you mentioned that because, all right, I'm gonna drop some lore. Like, you see, all of his like, you see Ruben and all that in the little lineup, and I'm just
Mm,
like, okay, so you obviously have plans to do Stitch the movie, but now you can't do it because you've made Jumba the villain. Jumba the villain. Because again, lore drop. In Stitch the movie, Jumba is the one who gets captured because Hamsterville like um just kidnaps him via Gantu. So like how are you going to do another movie if it just baffles me.
yeah. I think it seemed like they didn't entirely think it through. Like, I mean, on the one hand, yeah, it's better for an established character like Jumba to be the villain. At the same time, you have to actually like have plans with him rather than just be all like typical villain. And, look, I don't know if they'll make another Lilo and Stitch. They probably will because it's already made gangbusters at the box office. But if they are, I don't know. And they might even go like the Mufasa route, where they're not doing a sequel, kind of, or at least an adaptation of the sequel. Maybe they're just kind of doing their own thing. Like maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe it's all this is all a ploy to create the new Disney live action sequel slash prequel, Jumba.
No, please
No.
don't.
No, obviously I'm joking, but you know that's what's kind of going through their minds
It,
at
it,
this
it
moment in time.
it honestly hadn't occurred to me until you said that. Because I'm like, I just assumed the next project for the Lilo and Stitch franchise is Stitch the movie. And then they do, I guess, what is the next one after that?
Stitch
Lilo
has
and
a
Stitch the
glitch.
series, and then Lilo and
Hmm.
Stitch 2.
Hmm.
Um, that's what my natural thought is
Hmm.
you just replicate what the animated movies did.
because Mufasa it incorporated some elements from Lion King 2, like the inclusion of Kiara as like one of the characters in the wraparound segments, but other than that, it was trying to do like its own thing, well, by telling this prequel story of Mufasa and Scar. Whereas, I can see them maybe going a similar route for this. I don't know if they will.
Maybe Cobra Bubbles, a Lion King story, a Lilo and Stitch story or something.
Gave Cobra Bubbles the Andor treatment. Why not? That would be kind of cool, actually. Yeah, then the last episode will tie straight into him in Lilo and Stitch 2025.
Yeah, one of the episodes will be Roswell.
And they'll incorporate genocide somehow. Might as well. Yeah, no, I think all the stuff with Jumba. I mean, I get why people are pissed, but like, at least they didn't bring like Captain Gantu back, who I always just thought was a weak villain in the original. Like, it's just that's one of the omissions that I'm kind of glad was cut out of the film. So I'm glad there's no Captain Gantu in this.
Yeah, I could take it or leave it because Captain Gantu is pretty much comic relief in all the movies. Like his best friend ends up being Ruben at the end of the series. So it's like, okay, there's really, I understand the omission is what I'm trying to say.
But I also get why it's caused some ire among fans, because obviously they see Jumba as like this very cuddly and quite cute side character, and then they feel this him being the villain, this kind of ruins it. And I get it, but like in terms of just for the story's sake, I mean, I get where they're coming from, but again, they just went the typical like, oh, I'll take all the love out of you and make 627. Yeah, that sort of stuff was a bit falling flat.
Yeah, agreed. But I guess we should get to the other half, the human half of the story. How did you feel about the dynamic between Lilo and Nani and the whole thing of Ohana, how it changes in this movie?
Well, I mean, obviously the sister dynamic was so key to the original that I feel like they tried to make it sort of the heart of this movie, and some parts worked better than others. The actors do have good chemistry with each other, so that really does help. They really do feel like bickering sisters half the time. In terms of the themes of Ohana, I mean, obviously they're trying, it is similar to the original, whereas like they're trying to stay together because they are family, and no one gets left behind or forgotten, all that stuff. So they're trying to stick together in a lot. But I think this one, more than even the original, I think it really kind of leans into the idea of like a different sense of family, like a surrogate family. This one, I mean, in the original, sure, you had like Jumba and Pleakley and even Cobra Bubbles kind of joining in on their like little family dynamic, really kind of like creating their own Ohana in a sense. And you do get that here as well, but it's more so with the neighbors than anything. So the elderly woman, again, I can't remember her name, and also David, they're there, and they actually tie into a pretty major change at the end, which is another source of controversy for a lot of viewers. But I think it really plays around that, and it feels like they're also toying with the idea that Ohana, is always going to be like, to go the classic Disney route, always going to be in your heart more than actually physically being there. So the things that they do at the end of the movie, the decisions that are made, I mean, some parts I think like, okay, I see where you're going with this, but at the same time, it might cause more harm than good, I guess, in terms logistically speaking. I mean, I don't know what you thought about that.
The ending specifically, or
might as well. This is the spoiler corner.
So I think that I'm of the mind that the ending really doesn't matter that much to me, but it did rub me the wrong way. To have this whole movie be about, we gotta stick together, we gotta stick together, we gotta stick together, and then at the end it's like, well, some families grow apart and need to space to grow and things like this. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, but at the same time, you're leaving Lilo with an FBI agent who has already tried to experiment with Stitch because he could like little hair from Stitch, and the neighbor who really don't get a feeling for as much as I think we should for how the movie ends. To me, that these two people are like strangers, and I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is total stranger danger. I mean, I know Lilo knows these people, or at least knows the neighbor, but like, this is wild to me. I would never do that. But that's just me.
I think it establishes in the movie that, you know, obviously the sisters know like the neighbors more than was shown, more than they're shown. So they obviously have some history there. And yeah, I was listening to someone else talk about the ending to this, and there's this thing like, well, if Leo's is being threatened to be like taken into care and stuff with a different family, and then they brought up like, well, why didn't they just go with the neighbor? They obviously know her, and I've looked out for her before. In fact, the neighbor obviously is the one who's with Lilo when she gets Stitch from the shelter. So they're saying like, well, wouldn't it make more sense for her to go with them? And at the end, that's what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, rather that than like go with like a wholly different family that might not treat her as well as Nani does. But I think what people seem to be upset about the most is the fact that, you know, oh, it means like, you know, Nani's like leaving Ohana behind. Oh, she's going off to do like a marine biology and stuff. And just like, yeah, but at the same time, she's not abandoning Lilo forever. Like, even in the credits, it's shown like she can go back whenever she wants with her portal gun, like straight out of the Portal games. And
I felt that was a bit of a like convenience. I'm like, come on, really?
I mean, it is a little bit of a convenience, sure, but like I mean, they do flat out say in the film, like it's better if in terms of like the adjustment period to be with someone that they're already familiar with, rather than just settling into a family that's complete strangers. I mean, that right there is like stranger danger. I mean, logistically, I get why some people don't think it lines up, and some people thinks it portrays the overall theme of Ohana. I've even seen some people kind of like say like, oh, it's kind of like a slight metaphor for like the whole colonialism thing with Americans and Hawaii, and like oh, give your child up to the foster care. You know, it's the American way. But I don't know. I mean, like for me, I'd understand all that if Nani did leave Lilo to go with another foster family, whereas in this one, she's with people that they've established, they know well enough, and they honestly have cared for in the past. So I think that kind of makes sense to a point, but I get why people might not see it that way.
Yeah. And then that's my main thing is like, you know, we're meant to draw conclusions, obviously, but it was just, and I think the main thing is because of the breakneck pacing of this, it just didn't gel for me. Like, again, I don't know if I said this earlier, but this movie needs another 30 minutes.
No, you know, it really did. I think you're right about the pacing. Like, I think even at the end, when things are just wrapping up, it's just like we've had no time to really establish the ins and outs of this. I mean, we're supposed to take it at face value, and so far the details seem fairly skewed. I think, yeah, just a bit more time, like establishing the connection between the neighbors. I mean, again, it makes sense why she goes to them at all, but you know, we just need more time establishing that this is a safe enough environment. That I mean, they're likable enough characters. The neighbor's fine, and again, David's pointless, but he's just kind of there again. But it's just, I mean, yeah, just give a bit more time, establish these things, and then the ending will flow a lot better, I think.
Yeah. And then they, you know, the other part they forgot, I guess, maybe forgot, is the whole point Stitch gets to stay on Earth is not because he's done all this good. I mean, that's obviously an aspect, but the initial thing in the animated movie is yeah, I adopted him. Here are the adoption paper. We are now a family. So if you split us up, you're splitting up Ohana. But in this, there's like, no, he's just good.
Yeah, they do sidestep that a lot. Yeah, you know, I think they make a. I think in this film it's just like I think they just the shelter just posts on like social media like oh this guy got adopted and it's Stitch, so like that's the closest we get to like them getting a piece of paper. Like I do want to also bring up the fact that Lilo does adopt Stitch in the movie as she does in the original, but it's with the neighbor, and one of the next scenes is like Nani's like, "What did you do? You got a dog without consulting me or anything?" It's just like, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, you're the neighbor and you're familiar with this, but you don't do something like that for two people who are already kind of struggling to make ends meet. It's just like, why would you put this extra burden on them?
I mean, dog food's gonna be at least $100,
Right? Yeah.
it's or up there, I guess. But yeah, that is kind of odd, isn't it?
It's a little bit of like it is a little intrusive, I say, but like again, more scenes with these characters to understand why they would make these decisions, and you'd be fine. Whereas what we get is just like, oh, it just seems like they're doing it just cause. I mean, but otherwise we wouldn't have a movie.
Yeah, and I guess we briefly talked about it, but I do kind of want to mention this. You haven't talked about David yet.
Well, to be fair, it's very easy to forget that David exists because he's even more pointless in this than he is in the original.
Yeah, he's there.
He is there.
Do we even get the line of like, "Oh, I saw her texts" or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. I think in the original it's like, I read her diaries, and this one I read her text messages. Which, okay, fine. I mean, who reads let alone writes a diary in 2025? Okay, I get that, but like, it's slightly clunky, and yeah, David doesn't contribute anything. He contributes more in the original, which is saying something because David was just kind of nothing. And I've realized that a lot of talking about this movie, a lot of the key phrase seems to be kinda. Like Elvis is kind of in the background on the soundtrack. Hawaii is kind of a location in this movie. Cobra Bubbles and David, they're kind of characters. Like I feel like a whole lot of this movie is just it's this kind of Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, I think that's probably should be the tagline, kind of
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch.
Kind of Lilo and Stitch. Yeah. Lilo and Stitch dot 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 kinda.
But yeah, gosh, what else is there to cover about this movie that we haven't already? I don't think there is. Is there?
I don't think there is. I think we pretty much covered everything in terms of like the themes, how certain things compare to the original, like the changes they've made, the omissions they've made. Like it's a very it's weird because we've talked about this for like nearly a couple of hours, and it just dawned on us as aside from the obvious things, there's really not that much to talk about with this film. It really is like an in one ear, out the other kind of thing. It's just like, even me having seen it twice now, it's just like I barely remember anything from it. I'm not going to remember this movie in like a month's time. I'm going to be, it'll just yeah, just be wound up and forgotten. It'll be on Disney Plus at some point. There it will stay. It'll probably get like a DVD Blu-ray release because not everyone has Disney Plus, and that'll be the end of it. And I know that sounds very cynical, thinking, but that's what these movies are. They're designed to just kind of cash in on people's nostalgia and just make money from them. And by putting this in cinemas and instead of just dumping it on Disney Plus like they did with Pinocchio, which to be fair is a much worse remake than Lilo and Stitch is. Yeah, it's pretty bad, you guys. I mean, Lilo and Stitch might not be very good, but come on, you almost had it worse. No, by putting it in cinemas instead of streaming, like I think it's just a way of, like with Moana 2, just trying to like just trying to like make money off their IP rather than actually contributing anything that's different or worthwhile. And it's just a sad statement that Disney's in this position right now, that they're not in the position where they're not able to make any real creative leaps, that they're just kind of resorting to just what it is, nostalgia porn, to kind of like get people to keep seeing their films. Whereas, when all the original films came out, when what Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, even the original Lilo and Stitch, they were really still trying to find new things to work. And it's sad that they've kind of gotten to a point where they need to rely on all the old stuff. They keep looking to the past rather than embracing the future for a more lucrative and more respected present. I really hope, I mean, I don't know what's caused this kind of like change in creative output. I think Disney's only recently switched heads of a studio or stuff, and I think the new guy they brought in is not that keen on the Disney remake. So it's probable that this and Snow White and some of the more recent ones from the previous regime, and then I think the new one going forward is hopefully anyway, going to be more based on original stuff. But I really hope that Disney finds its way back again, because I mean, Disney's Disney for a reason, and
Yeah.
we love all these stories because they're engaging, they're imaginative, and we don't, and they're good to revisit, but we don't want them all the time. We want new stuff. Like maybe this is all leading to like a new Disney renaissance, like a second renaissance, like all original stuff, new movies to maybe remake 20 or 30, 50 years from now. So like, I don't know, I hope that this era of just mining our IP for slop is coming to an end fairly soon, because I think Snow White underperformed significantly at the box office. I know this one's done well, but like other than that, I don't see them continuing this path for much longer, because audiences are just numb to it at this point. They want something that's more challenging.
Yeah, I'm not usually a big proponent for putting things on streaming, but I've got advice for Disney for these live action remakes. Okay, here's the simple solve for the live action remakes. Okay, and how you make your money back. Only make the remakes that people say there's something wrong with X, Y, or Z in this movie. So Atlantis could be one. Treasure Planet could be one. Those are two movies I think people actually do want to see a remake of, or at least like see on the big screen. I think those are the two movies that people want to see on the big screen. And if you want to make your money back, bring back Disney Plus Premier Access.
I don't know about that. The Premier Access thing. I mean, that was introduced like when the pandemic was raging and not everyone could go and see all this stuff. So it makes sense for that. But like, I think because let's be honest, no one really I mean, the people are already paying the subscription fee for like Netflix, Disney Plus, all that. I really doubt people will want to pay for any add-ons, especially when they're like $25 just for a watch, like, which is extortionate anyway. But like, I'm not sure that, I mean, because streaming is just a flawed business model already. I don't think it needs to be made any more complex or will necessarily bring people more out of pocket, because again, people don't like paying for things unless they absolutely have to.
So my solve there is the Disney Plus Premier Access stuff. The movies that you buy immediately get ported to Movies Anywhere, so that you don't have to have a Disney Plus subscription in perpetuity if you buy it on Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. It just goes to Movies Anywhere, which Disney owns.
Well, we don't have Movies Anywhere here in the UK.
Oh, okay, that's a wrinkle. Okay, so, but anyways, I just thought Premier Access would be some kind of a solve if you need to make the money back. $15 or something like that to rent it and $20 to buy.
I mean, I don't know, maybe
make it a Disney Plus perk. or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
On
oh,
this
yeah,
higher
just make
tier.
it an exclusive, an incentive for more people to sign up or whatever. But like, I don't know. I think in the end of the day, I just want Disney to like start making good stuff again. Like, I mean,
Same.
I know it's not straightforward Disney, but Andor I thought was quite outstanding. Like, and I thought Thunderbolts was one of the better Marvel movies in recent years. And obviously, I'm excited for Fantastic Four. But like, obviously, what they were doing with Thunderbolts or New Avengers or whatever you want to call it now, what they did with that was genuinely like it felt like deserving of the big screen. And make stuff like that, take risks with the source material, but have it be about stuff rather than just like setting up a few films further down the line, and people will be golden. People will actually genuinely want to see it. And I think I really, and I think this for Disney to do that is not don't rely so much on your IP. I mean, yeah, sure, films like Strange World, films like Wish. I mean, they weren't very good, but that's because they weren't very well written. Actually, get some people like what they did originally at Pixar was like they got a bunch of people together, came up with a bunch of ideas over a lunch or whatever, and then just like spend the next um half a decade or so developing them and animating them, and you got some real gold mines there. I mean, the Toy Story, Finding Nemo, Monsters Inc., like all of these all of these were genuinely created by people with a real passion for creativity. And I feel like Disney is really missing something like that. In a lot of ways, Pixar is as well, because a lot of their stuff has been like sequels and stuff as well, whereas their originals have been kind of like faltering. I mean, I don't know how Elio's going to turn out, but it's already tracking for like a pretty bad box office because it's just the marketing just isn't there for it, and the
And
appetite
I
just
don't see
isn't there.
that.
Exactly, yeah, and it's also a film that kind of like Snow White has also kind of had a few like heavily publicized production issues. Like I think Elio it switched directors midway through, like it's the same person who did Turning Red. Turning Red's a good movie, but like when you switch creative vision that late into production, like I mean, something had to have gone wrong, and then obviously Lightyear kind of bombed as well. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough fix. Just I think this is basically just a long-winded way of saying Disney make good movies again, you know,
Yeah, and maybe even
and
look at what
original
Apple's
movies.
doing. Yeah, and maybe look at what Apple's doing because they seem to just be batting 1,000, except for Fountain of Youth.
Hmm.
Um, I'll give them a few stinkers here and there, but like most of the time, Apple's becoming the new HBO.
Apple, in a lot of ways, has some of the best quality in terms of like streaming content, but they also have some of the worst marketing because most of the shows are genuinely great, but you never hear people talking about them because their advertising budget is for shit.
Yeah, like here are two TV shows that are right now. Let me know if you've heard of them. Dick, have you heard of that?
No, I don't even know what that one's about.
It's got Owen Wilson in it.
What the hell? What? Why am I not watching that right now? Like,
He plays like
yeah,
a washed up golfer. It's great. I'm talking with Matthew Simpson about it once the season's over.
yeah.
Murderbot. You know about that one?
That one I did hear about, but only because it's like Alexander Skarsgård, and he's just in pretty much everything nowadays.
And then, surprise, surprise! I'm sure everyone's heard of this one. F1, the movie comes out this month.
Yeah, now that one I did know about, but I think I don't know if it's the case in the US, but Warner Brothers is handling distribution here in the UK. So I don't know if they're doing it over in the US as well, or if they have
It's
like a
it,
partnership.
it's a partnership here. It's
Mhm.
Apple is the producer, Warner Brothers is the distributor.
It's a similar thing with Amazon MGM over here. I think Warner Brothers is handling a lot of Amazon's puts out. They did challenges and a whole bunch. I think they also did Saltburn as well. From what I hear, I think Amazon's going to branch out as its own theatrical distributor going forward in the UK. So I don't know how long Warner Brothers contract with them is going to last, but with Apple and Warner Brothers, I mean that makes sense. I mean, Apple's already also collaborated with other studios as well, like Sony and stuff, to get their stuff out. So, I mean, that's what I think. I mean, going a bit off track, but like I think that's what a lot of streamers need to do. I mean, Disney. I mean, Disney's Disney, so he can release it through that. But like, but places like Netflix, especially Netflix, really need to collaborate with the actual big studios, because like I think their whole motto on like movies, it's an outdated form of watching movies. People will just want to say, oh, I get that, and it worked during the pandemic, but we're not in the pandemic anymore. We actually genuinely want to go out and see movies. I mean, even if they're absolute crap, like everything I heard the Electric State was, as bad as that movie can be, it might be, it deserves to be seen in a cinema so people can make that choice rather than getting lost in the endless algorithm, the endless scroll, and for never see it again. Like I was saying the other day, like, I mean, Hitman came out a year ago on Netflix, and that was a film, when I saw it, every time I saw it in a cinema, people were responding so well with it. They were applauding, they were laughing. It's a great crowd pleaser. And the fact that it went on Netflix and no one has really commented on it since, it kills me inside, because Netflix does not want to play ball with the actual distributors or exhibitors, and it sucks that they're so stubborn about it, because I think if they did that, like if they went through, say, Paramount to release the next Knives Out movie, they would make an absolute killing. Like, it's insane that they don't want to do that. And I think like Disney kind of needs to go that route in terms of its content, but at the same time, they need to know what deserves to be in cinemas and what doesn't.
Yeah, I would have put Lilo. As much as it pains me to say, I would have put Lilo and Stitch on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it does feel like a Disney Plus movie.
I mean, and that way people can watch the original, then watch the remake, then watch Stitch the movie, then watch Lilo and Stitch the series and Stitch 2. But so yeah, then you have like streaming numbers.
Yeah, I mean, like, but the thing is, it's difficult to really gauge like actual financial intake from streaming, because like even when they release movies on the cinema to like get it approved for like Oscar consideration, they never report the numbers, which is because I don't know if you had this in America as well, but a couple of years ago when they released Glass Onion for like a week in cinemas, every single report I heard is like it's selling out screenings left and right, and yet Netflix never reported how much money they actually made, because yeah, their model revolves around the numbers on streaming, and it's just not the same. Like, you've got to make money somehow, and subscriber numbers aren't going to do it. They're dwindling anyway, so you might as well expand into areas that people will actually pay a lot of money to see, like, I don't know, watching a movie in a cinema. I don't know, that's just me going off a bit of a rant with streaming and stuff. I don't know. But yeah, if you want to hear more about that, you can listen to my Hitman episode I did like a year ago with Matthew Buck.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link that.
Yeah, please do. That's one of my favorite episodes so far. I mean, Matthew's great, so like I always enjoy hearing what he has to say. But yeah, but that's just the whole thing. That's the whole issue I have with the current streaming model and all that stuff, and it kind of applies to Lilo and Stitch to get it back on track. Yeah, no, I think it's just a bit of a flimsy model, and Lilo and Stitch is proof of that.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. But yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it. And because I think we could talk about the state of streaming and movies for 3 hours on its own. Honestly,
Yeah, it's a whole other episode topic. So.
it is, and maybe if you ever want to come on and we'll talk about it, feel free. Or
Yeah,
I can
no,
come on and talk on your podcast about it.
yeah, no, I always love chatting with you, Austin. Like it's always great to chat with someone who's also so passionate about film and all that stuff. So yeah, it's always a pleasure, man.
Well, thank you. Well, I love talking to you too. But to those listening or watching at home, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. Leave a rating wherever applicable, and review it on your favorite podcast app. And now that you've listened to our discussion on Lilo and Stitch, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie in the comments below. On social media, I'm on Blue Sky at austinb.media, on my Discord, which I'll have linked in the comments, and the Patreon community chat. But Jack, where can people find your work?
Well, you can find the website, which is filmfeeder.co.uk, and I'm also very active on social media. You know, posting all my reviews on links to my reviews on there. So I'm on Instagram. I'm at filmfeeder insta because just filmfeeder on its own was taken, unfortunately. But most other places, like Twitter and Facebook and TikTok, YouTube, I am just at filmfeeder. So you can find me on those things, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on all the latest films through those channels.
You should be, by the time airs, you should have How to Train Your Dragon review up.
Yes.
I think that embargo just broke, actually.
Yes, I think yeah, they only broke at like 7 a.m. UK time, which is and I was at a film screening like 3 hours later. So that's, I don't know, if that's not a sign of confidence, I don't know what is.
But yeah, again, thank you for coming on. I've been your host, Austin Belzer, and until next time.
Bye, guys.